Welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. Please visit our website at ebiblefellowship.org. And now with his study in the book of Luke, here's Chris McCann.
Good evening and welcome to E-Bible Fellowship's Bible study in the book of Luke. Tonight is study number 10 in Luke chapter 1, and we'll begin reading in verse 9. Luke 1 verse 9 says, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And I'll stop reading there. Well, we understand that Zacharias had to burn incense. It was according to his duty as priest in the course of Abia, and it was by lot. We're told in verse 9, his lot was to burn incense, and when anything is done by lot, that means God has ordained it. God has chosen Zacharias to offer the incense. And it so happens at that time that he is in the temple offering incense, and it's the time when we read the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And by the way, we can, I think, know what time of day it was, because God ties together incense with prayer, and we'll look at that connection more closely later. But for now, we can gather that the people are praying without because it is the time of incense. And the time of incense is the time of prayer. This praying, it's seen, for example, in Acts chapter 3. If we go to Acts 3, we read in verse 1 of Acts 3, Now Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. And a certain man lame from his mother's womb was carried, whom they laid daily at the gate of the temple, which is called Beautiful, to ask alms of them that entered into the temple. He knew what time to come to ask the alms because it was a set time. It was the 9th hour. The 9th hour would be our 3 p.m. as the day began, 6 a.m., 6 to 12, 6 hours, and then the 9th hour is 3 p.m. In Acts chapter 10, we read of Cornelius, and Cornelius, interestingly, is visited by the angel of God, who's the angel of the Lord, the very same angel of the Lord, Gabriel, who appears to Zacharias at the altar of the incense at the time of his offering incense, which would have been the time of prayer. And there appears the angel of the Lord, just as we read here in Acts 10 in verse 2 of Cornelius, a devout man and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. We also find in the Bible that alms are connected to prayer in several places. Matthew 6, verses 2 through 5 ties them together. They're tied together here, that he gave much alms to the people and prayed to God always. And then in verse 3, he saw in a vision evidently about the 9th hour of the day. just as we read in Acts 3 in verse 1, let me read that again. Peter and John went up together into the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. Here Cornelius is praying, and God tells us it's about the 9th hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. What is a memorial? It's something brought into remembrance before God. He has remembered. What does Zacharias' name means? Yah has remembered. He's remembered his oath that he has swore. Well, further on in Acts 10, we read in verses 30 and 31, And Cornelius said 4 days ago, this is when he's explaining to Peter what happened, I was fasting until this hour. Prayer and fasting identify with getting out the gospel. Now, earlier in Acts 10:2, prayer was tied to alms. And the word alms identifies with mercy and compassion, which would further tie in with fasting, or the spiritual meaning of fasting, of bringing the gospel to sinners so that they might receive the mercy and grace of God. Well, it's the 9th hour, he says, I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, and thine alms are had in remembrance in the sight of God. Thy prayer is heard. Where have we seen that before? Go back to Luke 1. Luke 1, Zacharias is burning incense according to his lot. Verse 10, and the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense, which we can understand to be the time of prayer. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard. And thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. Just as Cornelius was told at the 9th hour, which we know to be the time of prayer, that thy prayer is heard. Now, you might think, well, that's not enough to say that the time of incense is the same as the time of prayer. Well, you could also go to Revelation chapter 5, Revelation 5, and in Revelation 5, we read in verse 8, and when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts, or 4 living creatures, and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors. This is the same Greek word, it's 2368 in Strong's, that is translated as incense. In Luke chapter 1, twice it's translated as incense. That is the Greek word with Strong's number 2368. It's only found 6 times in the New Testament. Once here as odors, once in Revelation 18, verse 13 as odors, and twice in Revelation 8, where we'll go to next. But here in Revelation 5, verse 8, golden vials full of odors or incense, which are the prayers of saints. And also in Revelation 8, we read in verse 3, and another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense, which came with the prayers of the saints, ascended up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar, and cast it into the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. So the golden censer filled with incense, much incense, is offered with the prayers of all saints. You can't find a clearer tie-in than God is making between incense and prayers of the saints. They go hand in hand. And so the time of incense is obviously the time of prayer, which is why the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. It's one and the same. So we know the time of day. Does that help us? Well, it's always good to know whatever we can know from the Bible, whatever bit of information. You never know. Maybe it doesn't immediately open anything up, but it may help down the road as we're doing some other study at another time. It's just good to have that understanding. We also know, of course, that Christ was on the cross and gave up the ghost at the 9th hour. It was the 9th hour when he cried out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And certainly that ties in with the prayers of the saints, doesn't it? As the saints pray for God's salvation, for his mercy, as we pray for whatever we pray for, it's all done on the basis of the Lord Jesus Christ's atonement performed for us. We have no ground. We have no right to approach unto God without Christ's shed blood covering us. That is, we can expect nothing, that's for sure. Of course, a sinner could go to God boldly in the day of salvation to the throne of grace, beseeching the Lord, have mercy, have mercy. But as far as going to God and reminding him of his promises and in our prayer, and I think this does direct us in that way, considering Zacharias' name, Yah has remembered, Elizabeth's name, God of the oath. He's remembered his oath that he has sworn to, his promises concerning salvation of all of his chosen people, concerning the promised land of Canaan, the new heaven and new earth, concerning everlasting life, concerning all the things that the Bible speaks to. And we are to remind God in our prayer. We are to go to him and, as it were, with incense. And the incense, ties in also with the Day of Atonement and with the historical parable that was lived out on that Day of Atonement with the high priest of Israel. If we turn back to Leviticus chapter 16, we read in verse 9, and Aaron shall bring the goat upon which Jehovah's lot fell and offer him for a sin offering. And again, the lot is in view. The lot is cast into the lap. The whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. And then in verse 10, but the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat shall be presented alive before Jehovah to make an atonement with him, and let him go for a scapegoat into the wilderness. And Aaron shall bring the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself, and shall make an atonement for himself and for his house, and shall kill the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself, and he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Jehovah, and his hands full of sweet incense, beaten small, and bring it within the veil. And he shall put the incense upon the fire before Jehovah, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is upon the testimony that he die not. And he shall take the blood of the bullock and sprinkle it with his finger upon the mercy seat eastward, and before the mercy seat shall he sprinkle of the blood with his finger 7 times. Now, we have to recognize that what Zacharias is doing, it has nothing to do with what Aaron is doing here. Aaron is doing this on the Day of Atonement, which would be in the 7th month, and Zacharias is ministering as a priest. He's a priest. He's not the high priest, so he would, just by that alone, would not be qualified to enter into the Holy of Holies. That was just for the high priest once a year. But more than that, Zacharias is ministering in the course of Abia, which is the Hebrew 4th month. So he is just accomplishing the normal burning of incense, not within the Holy of Holies, but nonetheless, this does show us that incense is very important and does relate to the atonement of Christ. And so here, when the high priest would go inside the Holy of Holies to make that offering on the Day of Atonement, the cloud of incense would rise up so he would find it very hard to see anything, and that's exactly what God wanted. But incense is a serious matter with God, and as far as Zacharias is offering his lot to burn incense, and the word burn incense, I mentioned 2368. This is another related word. It's 2370 because it has that idea, burn incense, within the same word. And that has to do with the prayers of the saints. Now, just to show how serious God takes burning incense, we'll go back to Leviticus chapter 10, and we read in the first 2 verses of Leviticus 10, "And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before Jehovah, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from Jehovah, and devoured them, and they died before Jehovah." They took censers, put fire therein, and incense thereon, but God said it's strange fire. That is, it's like strange flesh or another gospel, because they did not do this according to the law. It's not clear exactly what they failed to do, because they were sons of Aaron. They were priests, just like Zacharias is of the priestly order, and he could offer incense biblically or lawfully, and so could the sons of Aaron, but it's to be done at a certain time. And we see at least with Zacharias, it was done by lot. Now, I don't know if that would have been necessary so early on in the nation of Israel. Later on, there would be so many priests that it would be necessary to cast the lot so God could choose which priest. But whatever they did wrong, it could have been improper timing. Just something was improper in the way they offered this incense, because it's called strange fire, and God slew them with fire as a result. Now, also, if we go to number 16, in number 16, there were numbers of princes of the congregation. We read in the first couple of verses of number 16, "Now Korah, the son of Izhar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelah, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation men of renown, very important men. They were legitimately princes over their various tribes, and men of renown, men of a name. Everyone in the congregation knew these men. They were leaders of Israel. And they rose up and they say in verse 3, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron and said unto them, Ye take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jehovah is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of Jehovah. Now, it could be that this also relates to the priestly order, that only the priests, only the Levites were to minister with the tabernacle. And of course, Moses and Aaron were chief leaders over the whole congregation of Israel, the whole nation. And so these men, they're looking around. We're princes, aren't we? We are leaders of our tribes. Moses and Aaron, they take too much upon themselves. We are children of Abraham as much as they, and therefore we are holy as they are holy. We can do whatever they are doing. And so the Lord hears this and is full of wrath as a result. We read in verse 5, And he spake unto Korah and unto all his company, saying, Even tomorrow Jehovah will show who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him, even him whom he has chosen will he cause to come near unto him. Notice the emphasis on being chosen. Chosen, and we know it has to do with censers, because it goes on to say in verse 6, This do, take you censers, Korah, and all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense in them before Jehovah tomorrow. And it shall be that the man whom Jehovah doth choose, he shall be holy. Ye take too much upon you, ye sons of Levi. And so this will be the test. The test will be those who take censers, put incense in them, fire and incense, will determine if they are chosen and if they are holy. And we can see, of course, how that relates to God's salvation program, because everyone who is saved has been chosen, and is the prayers of the saints that are identified with burning incense. Who are the saints? The saints are those made holy. They are the ones that God has purified in salvation by washing away their sin.
You've been listening to eBible Fellowship's Evening Bible Studies with your host and Bible teacher, Chris McCann. For more studies and information, visit ebiblefellowship.org. Until next time, may the Lord's perfect will be done.